This is Money Motivation and Mike, and I am your host, Michael Wainwright, in charge of all the controls, audio engineer Jason Wright. And hello to you, world. This is the show that will change your life. Please find us at MX3.VIP and always contact us, info@MX3.VIP, or on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@MX3podcast. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get notified of all of our content, which always comes out Monday morning around 9 o'clock. Now, got an interesting episode today because the Jeffrey Epstein, which seems like will not go away in my eyes, and I believe he committed suicide back in 2019 while he was in prison, but because he was associated with some other people, some very prominent people over his lifetime, and being the financier that he was, his name continues to come up, and there was some documents that were released here in the last couple of days that I think is worth discussing. And as I have seen from some other folks that I follow, they're discussing it too. So before we get into that, we went over our New Year's resolutions, and once again, Happy New Year to you, 2024. We are now moving from 22 to 23 to 24 with Money, Motivation, and Mike, Jason. So nevertheless, when we're talking about New Year's resolutions, and the number one item that most people have as a New Year's resolution is get it in shape and losing weight. So a listener from the podcast sent me an email and brought me some information that I'd like to discuss here on the show with regards to what you should be eating. A list of foods that generally is considered beneficial for various parts of the body. So not only do you want to lose weight, you want to get in shape, we're going to give you some things here that I believe some of these topics are the most important parts of what you probably should be working on, besides maybe a little fat content. But your brain, what's best for the brain? Blueberries, walnuts, fatty fish, salmon, dark leafy greens. What's best for the heart? Which hits you and I right in the heart, Jason. Oats, fish, nuts, olive oil, dark chocolate, in moderation. Boy, I've always been wondering, what is moderation? What is that number? It's kind of like infinite. What is moderation? Moderation, we might need to have an episode on moderation.
I guess so.
And get a moderation expert on here, because I don't know any of them. Your bones. What helps the bones? Daily products, leafy greens, fish, nuts, seeds, cereal, plant-based milk. Don't know that I've ever had any plant-based milk. I like cow milk.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Mussels, lean meat, poultry, fish, beans, Greek yogurt. I know it's one of your favorites. And eggs. The digestive system. Once again, yogurt, whole grains, bananas, ginger, and peppermint. How about the liver, which so many people damage because maybe they don't do alcohol in moderation? Garlic, grapefruit, beets, leafy greens, vegetables such as broccoli, cauliflower, and nuts. Another bit, two more here. Lungs. Doesn't say anything about cigarettes. Lungs, apples, onions, garlic, ginger, green tea, and different fruits and vegetables. And finally, the kidneys. Berries, citrus fruit, apples, onions, leafy greens, and whole grains. There are other topics in here. Those are the ones I wanted to hit on. There's also what's best for your eyes, your skin, your joints, hair, nails, teeth. They've got something here for all of it. And this was sent to us by one of our listeners, and don't come on and give out those names, but it is good information. And thank you very much for sending us that information that we could pass on to the viewers and listeners. Now, moving on to Jeffrey Epstein. And just to recap here for a minute. And Jeffrey Epstein, the court documents that have been unsealed, and headliners naming Prince Andrew, former President Trump, former President Clinton, etc. Now, I'm going to go through some names here momentarily, but let's go ahead and have a disclaimer right now that because their name has come out on the list, it doesn't mean that they were involved in any criminal activity. There is no telling why their name is on that list. It may be just, have you ever seen, or did you know that Donald Trump got a massage? That could be the reason. Did you hear that Epstein went to dinner with Bill Clinton? That might be the reason that name was on here. Is that not correct, Jason? Is that what we've been told?
That is correct.
Okay. Dozens of previously sealed documents related to Jeffrey Epstein were made public late Wednesday as the court releases more records from a years-old lawsuit connected to the late financier who, as we talked about, committed suicide in jail back in 2019. Jeffrey Epstein was known as a sex trafficker and had friends like Prince Andrew of the Britain's royal family, Donald Trump. Now, years after his death, many of the high-profile friends of whom he was acquainted with, mostly young girls, that they received for sexual purposes, it's all about to be exposed, as some had just been. So, just recapping on that, what goes along there, and then his female girlfriend, who I believe prayed. As a matter of fact, she's in prison now, and I can't put my name on my thought on her name right now. Maxwell, wasn't it?
Yes.
Maxwell, Mrs. Maxwell is what I'm going to call her. But nevertheless, besides the release of these names, and frankly, let's go through here real quick on the release of these names. Prince Andrew's the first name. Now, once again, because their name is on this list, it doesn't mean anything. What the details of behind why their name is on the list hopefully will come out in the near future. And obviously nobody wants their name to be on the list. So I'm sure that people are going to be having to answer questions, of which we'll get into another topic here about names being mentioned, et cetera, et cetera. But here's some of the names that the listening and viewing audience would know, which is Prince Andrew, Kate Blanchett, Bill Clinton, David Copperfield, is on the list. Leonardo DiCaprio, Cameron Diaz. Moving on through here, Al Gore, the former vice president. And I did not see his name when I first strolled through this. Michael Jackson's name's on here. Right on down to where you have to get into the 90s to find Donald Trump, because his name is number 92. Bruce Willis on that name is that list as well. Kevin Spacey, who we know has had some issues with some of this same type of stuff. They're all on the list. Right now, there is 105 names that have been released, and innocent until proven guilty. Who knows why their name is on the list? I'm sure we're going to find out maybe as early as this weekend, et cetera, et cetera. Now, not only with the list coming out, but some of the scuttlebutt that's went on from Jimmy Kimmel, the late night talk show host, and Aaron Rodgers, the former Green Bay Packer quarterback, who is now the New York Jets quarterback and blew out a knee the very first series of the 2023 NFL season. But going back over here, Jimmy Kimmel, and they've had a little run-in feud over the last couple of years of Kimmel making fun of Rodgers, whether it's just or unjust. And I know it all leads back to Rodgers saying he was vaccinated back during the COVID, etc. But Jimmy Kimmel slammed Aaron Rodgers after the New York Jets quarterback claimed that the late-night host was potentially connected to the names of Jeffrey Epstein's alleged associates on Tuesday. He said this before the list came out. Now, whether you're joking or not, those are some harsh acquisitions. And I don't think that is the type of joke that should be talked about. For example, you're sitting with some young people and you start talking about, I think I'm going to go over to your mama's house tonight, and you're the adult in the room. That's the kind of talk that goes way too far. That's the kind of talk that you do not want to be associated with. And you, as the recipient of that, is certainly going to take it in a very serious way. But while discussing the impending release of the list of Epstein's alleged victims and associates, Aaron Rodgers, speculated during an appearance on the Pat McAfee Show. Pat McAfee Show comes on ESPN. His show, Jason, just started just like ours. I watched the Pat McAfee Show. I love trying to figure out some of his mannerisms and some of the things that he talks about and does. His show just started just like ours. We are potentially and moving in those type of directions to where we can do things like that as well here on Money, Motivation, and Mike. And obviously with the major efforts that you put in to listening to us, viewing us, greatly helps. But on the Pat McAfee Show Tuesday, the day before, quote, Aaron Rodgers, quote, a lot of people, including Jimmy Kimmel, are hoping it doesn't come out, end of quote. Okay. That is exactly what Aaron Rodgers said on Pat McAfee Show Tuesday. Here we are with Pat McAfee having a large audience. NBC involved in that. Not NBC, ESPN, ABC, the Disney, all those are tied together. So when something like that is said on a show, now, by the way, Pat McAfee also the next day apologized for what Aaron Rodgers said on his show. And I don't think Pat McAfee owes anybody an apology. With the stardom and the exposure that Aaron Rodgers has had over the last decade and a half after replacing Brett Favre as the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, you are not expecting Aaron Rodgers to come on your show and say some derogatory things. And in my opinion, this is derogatory. I wouldn't want it being said about me. But regardless, it also worth noting that Aaron Rodgers is a weekly guest on the Pat McAfee Show. And from the information that I read, he is paid $1 million a year to make a weekly appearance on Pat McAfee. And some of the things that have went along with Jimmy Kimmel making fun of Aaron Rodgers has came from the Pat McAfee Show. In response, Kimmel called out Rodgers on social media and appeared to threaten legal action hours later. And this is Kimmel, quote, Jimmy Kimmel, quote, for the record, I have not flown with, visited, or had any contact whatsoever with Jeffrey Epstein. And he just refers to him as Epstein. Nor will you find my name on any list other than a clearly phony nonsense that soft-brained wackos like yourself, referring to Rodgers, can seem to distinguish from reality. Your reckless words put my family in danger. Keep it up, and we will debate the facts further in court. I don't know how you could debate the facts when you've come out on national wavelengths and said what you said. So, like I said, Rodgers played a handful of snaps this year for the Jets and then blew out his Achilles. He is yet to respond, and I'm sure that he's waiting to go back on the McAfee Show to respond, since that's where it all started, and due to the fact that he's probably has some kind of contractual commitment to go back on there and respond. And McAfee has already has responded as well, but no guilty plea there on McAfee. Meanwhile, McAfee has tried to diffuse the conflict between the two during his show the next day, trying to play peacemaker. And he says, quote, I can see exactly why Jimmy Kimmel felt the way he felt, especially with his position, late night talk show. But I think Aaron was just trying to talk, in his word, S-H-I-T. Now, did it go too far? A lot of people, Kimmel certainly said that was the case. All right. I don't think Aaron Rodgers, and of course, this is my show, Money, Motivation, and Mike, so it's my opinion, but I don't think Aaron Rodgers was just kidding. And if he was, bad taste. Mm-hmm. But frankly, I don't think he was. I think he's just trying to stir the pot. He's had a lot of time on his end since last September when he got injured. And this is Aaron Rodgers 101, to go out and do and say things that he's maybe not trying to create controversy, but he does it quite a bit, and has throughout most of the time that I have known of Aaron Rodgers. But the back and forth between the TV host, and the starting quarterback goes back to 2021 when Kimmel criticized Rodgers for refusing to take the COVID-19 vaccination after the then Green Bay Packers signal caller misled the public by saying he was vaccinated against the virus. That's where it all starts. Now, for those of you recall back then, and he did mislead. I remember seeing it on TV, on ESPN, where are you vaccinated? Yes. They didn't ask what he was vaccinated for. Mm-hmm. Now, due to the fact that the COVID the COVID virus was going on, it wasn't asking if he was vaccinated from the chicken pox. They were 300 million Americans knew exactly what he was referring to, I guess, except for Aaron. I guess Aaron didn't understand the question. But the rest of the listening and viewing audience from that interview realized that Aaron Rodgers was talking about the COVID-19 vaccination. He did not take the COVID, he did not take the shots to get vaccinated by COVID. But he did say that he did. It misled, and then a couple of weeks later, it came out that he had never received the shots, never received anything. And of course, Kimmel went to town on him. He's a comedian, and he's a good comedian, and he has a good show and lots of audience. Now, recently, Kimmel has also poked fun at Rodgers when Rodgers suggested once again on the Pat McAfee Show that there is increased discussion over UFO sightings, and that could be a distraction from Epstein's client list. This is the kind of stuff that Rodgers talks about, UFO sightings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Needless to say, this is once again, needless to say, all this UFO talk has 10 full haters going wild, including whack packer Aaron Rodgers. Kimmel said before showing a clip of Rodgers' comments, showed it on his night show. Kimmel also said that maybe, and this is pretty funny, maybe it'd be time to revisit the concussion protocol, referring that Aaron still has a concussion. Okay, a judge ruled in mid-December, and this is where all the list comes from, that a judge ruled in mid-December that the list could be unsealed, but delay the release until January to give those involved time to appeal the listing. Now, that would tell me that these 105 people were contacted so that they could know that their name was on the list. Now, that would tell me Jimmy Kimmel hadn't gotten contacted. He knew he wasn't on the list. How did Aaron Rodgers think that he was on the list? Well, I don't know that he did. But nevertheless, 105 people's names were made public as part of a settled civil lawsuit, here we go, against British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell, the former girlfriend of Jeffrey Epstein, who played a major role in soliciting minor girls, minor females, into the sex trafficking that was the Epstein empire, all funded by the fact that he was a major player on Wall Street and the surrounding finances that go on in Manhattan. So that is your background here. 900 pages, Jason, of documents. But like all other things, let's wait for another week or two, hopefully this weekend, and then they can give us some more. Now, they did put a disclaimer. Many of those names are mentioned, are not accused of any wrongdoing. Yeah, it's easy to say that when your name's not on the list. But I'd prefer that my name not be on the list. And of the 105 names we've listed here, I don't know any of them personally. I'm proud to say, Jason, your name is not on the list.
Thank God.
So, yes, sir. So far, so good. Now, as I said when we started the show, there are many affiliates that have commented on what's going on here. And you have got me a reaction video, I believe, set up from Stephen A. Smith. Now, a little background on Stephen A. Smith. He's a co-worker with Pat McAfee. Stephen A. Smith has his own show. Stephen A. Smith has branded himself basically by becoming a cowboy hater. Hates the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Tells a great story about that we'll get into at a later date. Had a girlfriend that was a Cowboy fan. Yes. And she broke up with him.
Because he wasn't a fan?
Many moons ago. I don't know why they broke up, but she was a Cowboy fan. Stephen A. is a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. But really, Stephen A. is a fan of the other 31 teams in the National Football League. And I'm telling you, he's made a mint of being a Cowboy hater. Yeah. So let's hear what Stephen A.'s got to say. As we've talked, all beginning with McAfee, the Pat McAfee Show. And like I say, Stephen A. and McAfee, they work together right there in those ESPN hallways. Here we go.
Jimmy Kimmel is a comedian. He's a funny man. He's exceptional at what he does. I admire him. I once subbed for him on his show in August of 2021, one of the proudest moments of my career. And I do feel like Pat McAfee hit the nail on the head when he said that Aaron Rodgers was just taking a dig at him. He was joking around. He wasn't necessarily serious about such a thing.
I don't agree with that. Aaron Rodgers got emotional, as we all do, did not like what was said about him on TV. And frankly, Kimmel just called him a liar about the vaccination of COVID-19. And on and on and on. I mean, if you're going to be a person of Aaron Rodgers' stature and you're going to talk about UFOs, you might want to be ready for what's going to be coming in the backlash back to you.
Because obviously him and Jimmy Kimmel have had a back and forth because Kimmel has said things about Aaron Rodgers in the past, purportedly. But let me say this to Aaron Rodgers. Jeffrey Epstein there's nothing to joke about. I love Aaron Rodgers. Everybody knows that.
And I just said that a while ago. I don't want to be joking about sex trafficking on national wavelengths. I don't want to be joking about sex trafficking whenever we go off this air and you and me are just in here talking.
He's a bad man. You know me. But Aaron Rodgers should apologize.
Never happened. That's going to be our. You can find us at mx3.vip and you can email us info@mx3.vip. I want to hear from you, listening and viewing audience. Do you think Aaron Rodgers will apologize? I'm going to cast the first vote. He won't apologize.
Plain and simple. Just uncomplicate the situation by saying, even if you don't like Jimmy Kimmel, say that too. Look, I don't like him. Okay? And I was taking a dig at him, but clearly that went too far. I crossed the line, and that is not something I should be saying about any human being who's not guilty of such a thing. Period.
I'll be the first one to come on this show and tell Aaron Rodgers I apologize if he apologizes. Because my opinion is he will not apologize. He does not come from that background. There's no doubt about it. He in his eyes is the reason the Green Bay Packers were what they were, and it will be in his eyes why the New York Jets are what they will become if he comes back next year and does some good things. And this has nothing to do with his playing abilities, which is phenomenal. Several MVPs. One of the things that does scare me about our Cowboy football team and Mike McCarthy, as you know, Mike McCarthy was the longtime coach of Aaron Rodgers, and they only won one Super Bowl together and never even made it to another one. But that greatness of Aaron Rodgers was the coach holding him back and not being able to manage football in the last 2 minutes of a football game. But nevertheless, Jeffrey Epstein, I respect and have a lot of good thoughts about Stephen A. Smith. In the early years of him coming on, he started out the Philadelphia Inquirer, and we know what we think about the Philadelphia Eagles. But he's in that background, and he's made good for himself. And I really didn't start turning to liking Stephen A. until he had a radio show. He still has a radio show, but it used to be on ESPN Radio and at our local affiliate, which no longer exists. But Stephen A. came on there and did that show every day, I think, from 12 to 2 hours, 1 hour, something. But it was good stuff. And there's a lot of things that he brought up that were totally correct. One of them is not the fact that the Cowboys are not America's team. The Cowboys are America's team. Stephen A. does not think so. Stephen A. ranks them 32nd. He hates the Cowboys. And believe it or not, he and Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones are good friends. But I wanted to put him on here because his thoughts and my thoughts are a whole lot the same with regard to this Jeffrey Epstein stuff, the Jimmy Kimmel stuff, the Aaron Rodgers stuff. And hopefully the Aaron Rodgers, Jimmy Kimmel stuff will go away and we can get back to looking at these documents and seeing what's out there. It is news. It is newsworthy. It is worthy of talking about. And maybe the wake up of what happened in this Epstein situation can work on sex trafficking. And it seems to me that it's a bigger topic and more of an issue than it's ever been since I don't know when, but I know that it's still hard and heavy, and maybe the exposure of the Jeffrey Epstein court documents will bring out some more attention to how we have to be on top as citizens of the great nation of the United States of America, of being involved in what sex trafficking is. Because I know, I mean, you see these local TV stations wherever you are, that it's happening in your neighborhood. It's happening right under your eyes. It may be happening next door and you don't even know it. You have to be aware of that. And we have to be conscious as a society to be aware of what this sex trafficking is and what it's doing to our local, our national communities. And it's another one of those things like mental health that I don't think that we focused in on enough. It's just like this Jeffrey Epstein stuff. This isn't new news. It's continuing to go on. And this goes all the way back to like the 2010, 2011 time when he was convicted of some sort. Once again, as always, you can find us at MX3.VIP, and you can contact us at info@mx3.vip. Or you can look at us on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@MX3podcast. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get notified of all of our future content, which as always comes out on Monday morning. So until next time, continue to live your life the right way.